Hey guys, it's Rick. Welcome back to the channel. Today is a very special video. We are doing a collab with Lou Collins and Craftstash, and they were nice enough to send me some of Lou's texture brand products, and I'm going to be using we're going to be using the Woodlands paper pack, the Toadstool die set, the Squirrel and Hedgehog die set, the Ferns and Leaf die and stamp set, and the birch trees background stamps. All right, to start off, I'm going to do a little ink blending with my Distress Oxide inks. I'm using Spice Marmalade, Cackling Campfire, Candied Apple, and Mustard Seed. On this panel, the ink blending does not have to be smooth. It doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to use this panel to do our die cutting with in some of our panels. But I wanted to get some color down on some paper and make this a nice and pretty card. We are actually going to be doing 2 cards today. So make sure you hang out to the end. We're going to do a nighttime and a daytime scene. And if you hang out to the end, I have a special to tell y'all about once we get there. So, but I won't tell you that until we get to the very end. So make sure you stick around. You have to stick around. I know you. All right, so I'm just going to go back over some of those colors one more time to darken them up. And you can see my ink blending is kind of splotchy. It's okay. We're going to be die cutting. I'm going to flick on some water out of my Distress sprayer. And I'm going to pick that up with a paper towel. I'm going to add a little texture to this. Now I'm taking a piece of that pattern, the Woodland pattern paper. We're actually going to use a couple pieces of this. And it has this beautiful text and book page images in it. So I'm going to ink blend over that. I'm using Mustard Seed to start out. And we're going to use some squeezed lemonade. Or, sorry, Twisted Citron. I don't know what I'm doing. Twisted Citron, Lucky Clover, and Rustic Wilderness on this. And again, this does not have to be super smooth because we really want it for the texture and the color. So we're going to finish this up with our Rustic Wilderness. And just blend that in a little bit. And I'm going to add some of it around on all pieces of the cardstock. And I want the patterns in the background to show through. That's going to add more texture to our die cuts when we get there. We're going to spritz that panel and soak that water up. And then we're going to do one more panel. And these are going to be for our bottom of our toadstools or mushrooms. And I'm using frayed burlap, antique linen, ground espresso, and the new scorched timber that just came out recently. So we're going to, that was frayed burlap, and then we've got the ground espresso. And I only used just a little bit of the scorched timber right on the edges and kind of in the middle. Sorry, I had to get a drink. And we're going to lighten just up a little areas with some antique linen. I lost that. I'm going to spritz that with some water and soak that up. And then we're going to set these panels to the side to dry. Now, for my card bases, we're going to make square cards today, and they're going to be big. But I'm going to want a matte, so I'm just taking some white cardstock, and I'm just going around the edge with my ground espresso Distress Oxide ink, and just going to do that. And I did that for 2 panels. I'm going to scratch off a little heel, just using a pencil. And I'm going to cut that out. We actually end up using both of these for heels on our cards. And we're going to erase all our pencil marks. We don't want to do our ink blending and get that all trapped. I'm going to just take my paper snips and clean up that edge. All right, so this is going to be for our daytime scene. So I'm going to start off with Twisted Citron. I used all the same colors. And I'm just going to cover that up. I'm coming in with Lucky Clover. And because this is daytime, it's going to be a little bit brighter, a little bit more. You're going to see less of the darker colors and more of the brighter colors. So I'm going to come in now with a little Rustic Wilderness just around the bottom. And I'm smoothing all those out in between. I am going to take a cloud stencil from my stash and add some clouds in the background panel. I think these cards ended up there being like 5.5 by 5.5 square. So, big cards. I was not playing with y'all. They're big cards today. All right, so I was super excited to be asked by Craftstash to do this collab with Lou. I have followed her for a long time and love her projects and love her products. These products were fabulous. I really enjoyed playing with them. All right, now that I've got my clouds on there, I'm going to pop this in my Misty. And I'm taking the birch trees from the birch tree background stamps. And I did not realize until I made the first card that y'all will see later, that this was a layering set on some of them. So I'm going to stamp that down in antique linen. I thought about adding the little bit of white, but it didn't show up, the picket fence. So I ended up giving up on that and just using the antique linen. But I'm going to stamp this 3 times. So I'm going to slide my card over each time and place 3 sets of those birch tree bases in my background. I'm just stamping that in antique linen and make sure we get a nice impression. And you can stamp with Distress Oxide inks better than you can Distress inks. They're not really meant to stamp, but Distress Oxide, since they're a pigment and a dye property, you can stamp with those really nicely. So this is our last set of 3. And then I'm going to line up the second stamp to this set, in the set. And this does the tree, the limbs, and the little marks on the birch trees. So I'm going to stamp that in frayed burlap. And I'm going to go ahead and stamp all 3 of those. And look how beautiful that is. How it just, you can see how beautiful that is. It just brings that birch tree right to life. I just don't know what I was thinking when I saw it. I was just thinking when I first saw it, well, I don't know. That's a fun texture. And then I realized they layer together. It's a 2-step stamp. Duh. And that's a real fun set because you have not only the birch trees, but you have a silhouette of some trees and a big log and the inside cut of a log. All right, so now we're going to do our grass for our nighttime scene. So this is, I'm going to use those same 3 colors. The Twisted Citron, Lucky Clover, and the Rustic Wilderness, but you can see I'm coming up a little bit higher with my Lucky Clover. Because this is going to be an evening scene, you're not going to see as much light hitting the grass. So my darker colors will come up a little bit higher. I do end up, in just a second, as we blend this out, we are going to add a little bit of black soot into this. And I'm just going to do it just along the bottom edge and up in those little corners. And I'll blend that out with my Rusted Wilderness. That way it gives it that nice shadowy effect, like it is, like the sun is going down and you have that nice little shadows in the dark area. Now we're going to do our evening sky. So I've started out with a yellow color. I am using, where's it go? I am using mustard seed and then candied apple. Again, we're using mustard seed and candied apple, and I'm putting in a little spice marmalade in there, and between those 2 colors, I'm going to use a little picked raspberry in there, and a little bit of seedless preserves at the top, because that's going to blend into our pink, and we're going to smooth that out. And my phone keeps messing up. Sorry about that. And I added just a little bit of Villainous Potion at the top. That way it gives us a nice, beautiful sunset scene. I'm going to take a little bit of water onto my mat and I pick it up with a brush. And I'm going to flick that off and create some stars in the background. I didn't want to do white. I wanted to keep it subtle, but I wanted to have that little bit of texture in there. So we're going to pick that water up, and you can see it's going to give us that texture. I'm going to dry it off. And now I'm going to put this back into my Misty, and we're going to stamp our silhouettes of our trees. This is the other stamp in that birch tree background set. So I'm going to stamp this in a dark pigment ink. I am using VersaFine Onyx Black ink to get a nice dark silhouette of the trees. So we're just going to stamp that and fill up our card. This is a 5.5 by 5.5 card. So I think this is 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. My mat is this is 5 by 5. The mat is 5.5 by 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. If I could talk, y'all. Yeah, I could be cooking with grease here. Now we're going to fill in our last little panel of our trees. And then we're going to set this to the side and let it dry. Oh, I forgot. We're going to go over to the other side and fill in that edge. You do want to make sure you stamp off the edge when you're doing something like this. That way it keeps it a continuous look on your card. So we are going to stamp that down. And then we're going to move this to the side. I'm just checking, make sure my heels are going to be covered up. Now I've pulled in all my panels and I've pulled in those 2 sets of dies. I pulled in the fern leaves Fern and Leaves Stampin' Dies and the my toadstools. And I'm going to line up the toadstools. I'm cutting the tops out of that red and orangey color that we did. And we're doing spring cards. We're taking these fall products. I'm making spring cards if I didn't mention that, which I don't think I did. And that brown is going to be the base of my toadstools. And I'm going to cut all these out. I've cut several of these out. I'm only going to show you this right here. And then I'm going to cut the rest of them off screen. And I'm going to do the same thing with my fern pieces. That comes from the Fern and Leaves Stamps and Dies. You have some great dies that will cut out the outline, and you have some that will cut out just these pieces. So I've cut all those off screen. I'm going to do some in that red orangey color also, because when I was making the card, I kept thinking of where the red fern grows. I don't know why, but I did. So I've cut those out. I'm going to pop those into my little container. Now I'm going to take and cut my hedgehog and my squirrel. And I'm just going to cut these from white cardstock. This is from the squirrel and hedgehog die set. I cannot tell y'all how much I have loved these products. I have been super happy with them. I've eyed this set for a long time, ever since it came out. All right, so to add color to my white die cuts, I'm going to use my Spectrum Noir Tri-Blend brush markers. And I've started out mapping out my colors, my shadows on my squirrel and where the darks are going to be. There are etched lines on this die, so you kind of know where things are going to be. So I've just kind of outlined that, and I'm going to come in with my darkest colors, which is IG10, Ice Gray 10, and I'm going to blend that out with Ice Gray 7, Ice Gray 6, and Ice Gray 2 is my lightest color. So I've mapped in my darkest. I'm going to blend that out with the IG7 and the IG6. And we're just going to put in anywhere the object is overlapping, like his little leg or his little arm. This is going to be darker. So we're going to put the little darker areas there. And then blend that out with the IG6 and the IG2. I did pull in, I think, IG3 also from the extended set. Pretty sure. Yeah, I know I did. So we're just going to blend that out. And IG2 is going to be my lightest color. And I'm just going to fill in that. I've left the little circle opening around his eyes. The little mark, his mask, I guess is what you'd call it. The mask on his eyes, I'm going to color that a different color. But we are just going to color this up using our markers to add that shading. This made it super easy, and I didn't have to cut a lot of different colors of cardstock. I'm just smoothing out my blends here, and I'm going to give it a second coat so that everything is nice and smooth. And I decided I wanted it a little bit darker, so I came in with that IG10 and made it darker, because I wanted to have it really like he was standing in the sunlight, and so the back of him is going to be a little bit darker than the front would be, because the light's not going to be hitting him as in the back as well. So that's why I chose to do that. So we're just going to blend that out one more time. And just get a nice smooth blend. Then we're going to work on our little tail. And we're going to do that same thing. I'm darkening up his little ears. Sorry, I forgot. So again, I was super happy when Craftstash contacted me to ask if I wanted to do this collab. And it was just like, yeah, of course I do. I love Lou. I think she's a fabulous, talented stamper and designer. So I was all up on it. So we're going to go and now do our tail. And they did send me these products to play with, if in case I didn't mention that. But I do have a full list of the supplies down in the visual supply list below as we finish coloring our little tail. So that was the IG10. This is the IG7. And I'm going to blend that out. If you notice, I'm going around in like the circular shape of his tail with the IG6 to get that nice and blended. And then we're going to come in. This is the IG6. I did pick up a little bit of the darker color and did a little tip to tip to blend that out a little bit better, to get a better transition on that. Okay, so we got our IG2, blending that out. And I think this is why I threw in the IG1 also. This is the IG2. So I did throw in IG1 also. It's a little bit lighter, just at the very tip, because there would be a lot of sun hitting it. Now for his little mask, I'm using tan 3 and tan 3, fair skin 8, and fair skin 7 for that. And then I've just laid my die cuts on top of the other die, and I'm just mapping out where my shadows would be on that. And I'm going to blend that the same way. I'm just going to add a little color back there with my fair skin and my grays. I've started with the grays, and I'm coming a little bit past where my dye is going to cover up, so that way it's hid once I put these together. So we're going to sit and add our little, color his little belly and his nose. And this is where I pull in a tan 3, fair skin 8, fair skin 7, and fair skin 6 in our tri-blends. So we're just going to darken that up, add a little color, smooth that out. And again, you want to go a little bit past of where your top die cut's going to lay. That way it covers everything up. Now, I forgot a spot. I'm going to do my little hedgehog, and I'm going to do him. I'm going to color his, I'm going to map it out first. So this is where his little belly would be. And for him, I use tan 7, tan 6, tan 3, and tan 1. And I'm just going to start off with the tan 1, mapping that out. And then I'm going to pull in my tan 7. And again, I'm coming slightly past of where that top layer will sit, so that I can get a nice coverage where it won't see the lines. Not lines, but where you can't see where the color starts and the color stops. Transitions. Words are hard. All right, so we're going to blend that out with tan 6 and tan 3. And then I'm going to finish off by adding just a little bit of tan 1 and lightening it up just a tad. But we're just going to smooth that out. I did do 2 coats. For his quills, I used Earth Brown 8, Earth Brown 7, Earth Brown 5, Earth Brown 4, and Earth Brown 2. I started out with the Earth Brown 8. I'm blending that out with Earth Brown 7, and I'm just flicking in towards my light source, because this is going to be for the nighttime scene, so it's going to be a little bit darker. That's why I went darker with the colors. That way it fits into the scene and makes it look more natural. Like the moon is hitting his little face, so everything behind that will be a little bit darker. So that was Earth Brown 4, and this is Earth Brown 3. So we're just going to blend that out. And I do go around the edges of the die cuts with the markers just to make sure that everything is covered. I did color all the little pieces that were also cut from that die with the markers as well. And this is my citrus yellow blend, and I'm just going to color the little flower. I did use burnt orange for the center of the flower part, but this is just the citrus yellow. And I'm just going to blend that out using the tri-blend markers. There's our little burnt orange, and I just used one color just to add it in there. And then for the stem, I used alpine green. I had to think for a minute what that color was called. So we're just going to blend that out, and then we can start putting everything together. So we're just going to attach this with the little liquid glue. I'm going to put liquid glue behind the parts that's going to layer. And we're just going to add that straight on there. And we're going to take our little tweezers and pop that onto our card base. I'm going to pinch it into place, or not card base, our little die cut, the back part of our die cut. I'm going to pinch that into place, and then I'm going to fold it a little bit with my fingers. I'm just touching up little areas that were peeking through that I missed. And then we are going to put his little eyes in. I'm just going to glue his little eyes, and it all comes together. It was super easy. Lou made this super easy to put together, so don't worry about that. The little pieces just all fit. Excuse me. And I just pop on his little nose, and my little squirrel is done. He's so cute. I'm going to take and fold that around my fingers a little bit to give it a little bit of lift, so that he stands up off the card just a little bit more and gives him a little bit of definition. And now we're going to move to our hedgehog. I'm going to pop out all the little quills that were supposed to be popped out that Rick forgot. That way it gives it a little bit more texture to the card. I'm going to attach that to our little hedgehog body. And look how cute he is. All right, so we're going to take and get that nice and lined up. I did fiddle with it for a little bit because Rick quit moving it. I'm going to attach my little flower. I decided that it was easier to attach the stem and then attach the flower top to him first. So I've attached the stem. I'm going to attach the little flower. I'm going to put his little nose on. And then I'm going to take and flip him over. Actually, I'm going to curl him a little bit. Then I'm going to flip him over. And I had an extra part of the eye from the other die. So I'm going to pop that in the back. And I'm going to put his little pupil in there. And it just fits right nicely in there. Now, to put up our toadstools, I'm going to take the tops and line that up with the back. You can see it's got an etching in it, so it lines up nice and easy. You just put them right together. And now we're back to building our scenes of our card. So for the night scene, we're going to take our focal panel and put on our mat that we did a little ink blending on. We're going to take our heel and put it on there. I'm going to pop that up with some foam tape. I do end up cutting that foam tape down just a little bit to get it nice and even on there, because I don't want it to sag, and I'm not sticking anything behind it, so I'm not have to worry about that. We're going to peel those backings off, and we are going to pop this onto our card front. I'm going to add a little liquid glue and just pop that right down at the bottom, lining it up at the base of the focal image. I just want to make sure I got it nice and lined up. You can tell I'm excited about this video. We're going to pop our little hedgie in there. And then I'm going to pop him up on a little foam tape just right behind. I'm going to add a little liquid glue where he's going to be popped up on the center of the card. So the rest of it, I just needed to have that. I'm going to arrange my little fern pieces like he's sitting in his little den looking at the night sky. This is the story I was telling myself. So we're going to arrange everything where I want it to be. And we are going to pop everything in once we get it arranged and start gluing pieces down. I just want it to look nice and full. And like he's just sitting in the little grass, just comfy. All right, so we are going to take and pop on our little toadstool. And then we're going to add our ferns. I added some of the red ones and the green. I wanted that to be nice and balanced with our red-orange color, and it balances everything out. I did add a little foam tape to the top of the toadstools and just glued the bottom pieces down where it gave it a little bit of lift. So there's one side. We're going to do the other side. I did balance everything out using the same colors that's in those toadstools. So everything is nice and balanced on each side. If there's a orangey red one on one side, there's an orangey red one on the other side. Same thing with the green and the toadstools. And we did do an odd number. That way it keeps it nice and balanced. And we're just going to find where that's going to fit. Pop it on. Do our last one here. And I'm going to add my sentiment in just a minute. We're going to add this to our card base. And again, that's a 5.5 by 5.5 inch US size card. So it's pretty big. All right, for the inside, I added some of the die cuts and some of the one of the toadstools on the inside of each card. So I've got my little ferns. I added one of the orange red ones and the green ones, and you can see how we got. It didn't matter about the ink blending because you're not going to see it. It just added color to it. So there's the inside of that card. And now we're going to work on building our daytime card. So I'm going to layer this up onto our matte layer. This is the one with the little birch tree. This is probably my favorite card. I don't know, it's a toss-up. If I like the night scene or do I like the day scene. Which one do y'all like best? Let me know in the comments. All right, so we're going to glue that down. Rick got to get a drink. We're going to pop our little heel up with the foam tape. And we're going to cut some of this down to where it's nice and where it fits nicely on our card base. We're going to attach that to the front of the card, making sure to line everything up just like we did before. And you can see when we put these together how you get totally different looks using the same spring or fall products with a spring look. So we're going to pop our little squirrel on, and you can see he's looking right up into the sun, the morning sun. So his face is nice and lit up. And we're going to add our little ferns. We're just going to tuck them around the back of him and in front so that it looks like he's coming out of the glade in the morning to see what is going on in the early morning daytimes. I just love this card. I think it's so pretty. All right, so we're just going to continue popping our little leaves, our fern pieces in there. I did cut a few of the little, I don't know what they're called. They're little pieces of the fern that curls up. Charles would know if I asked him, but he's in the house. So that's neither here nor there. So we're going to pop on our little toadstools. I'm going to change that one to a big one, a little medium one, and then I'm going to put the small one over there also. And I'm going to add another couple of toadstools on the other side. And I'm just going to tuck it behind the heel. We're just popping out those little things, those little curly Q things. I don't know what they're called. I know they're part of the fern. I call them feathers, but I know that's not what they're called. But anyway, I added a couple of those on each side of the card, and then I'm going to come in and add another one on the front. We're going to do our inside of this card also. And we are just going to place around a few more pieces of the fern. I decided it needed a little bit more greenery up in there. And then I'm going to take my toadstool right here, and I'm going to open up the inside of the card, and I'm going to put a fern and a toadstool on the inside. I chose the green one this time for this card, and that was the only one I put in there. I still have plenty of room to write, so don't worry about that. All right, so now we're going to stamp our sentiment. I decided to stamp these in a white pigment ink on some black cardstock. I'm going to prep that with my anti-static powder tool, and I'm going to stamp that in my white pigment ink. I'm using sentiments from the Fern and Leaves stamp set. I'm going to just line those up. One's going to say sending hedgehog kiss hugs. Sending hedge hugs, and then the other one's just going to say friends or friend. And I'm just going to stamp these twice, and I'm going to cover these with white detailed embossing powder. I think I used from Wow. I thought I used Wow's white opaque embossing powder. So I'm going to heat set those until they're smooth and melted, and then once these cool, I'm going to cut them out with the coordinating dies from the Ferns and Leaves stamp set. So we're going to smooth that, cut them out. I'm going to buff off any excess powder. Line these up. They were super easy to line up. If you look through the little holes, they lined up perfectly easily. So that was great. I'm going to line up the sending. And we're going to put that on, and we're going to put our little friend die on there, and we cut these all out at the same time. I ended up not popping these up. I just glued them to the card to make it super easy. But I do want to make sure when you're lining them up, you get them lined up perfect. So for our little hedgehog nighttime scene card, I'm going to put a little bow with some twine. I'm going to do a double bow. I just thought it needed a little bit of something. So I'm going to add just a double bow with some twine in there. And I'm just going to attach that with a little liquid glue. And then I'm going to pop on my Hedge Hugs sentiment. So I'm going to glue that down first. And I'm just going to glue it straight over my little bow. And then I'm going to put my sending on. And I'm just going to put that right in between the little toadstools. And nestle that in there and finish that off by adding, jump back to the other card. So this is the one that's just going to be friend. You can write anything you want on the inside or use any of the other texture products to add a nice finishing sentiment to the inside of the card. I'm just so excited over this. So I finished these off by adding a few highlights with a white gel pen to our toadstools and our squirrel and our little hedgehog. So I'm just going around adding little highlights anywhere that there would be in the darkest spots where the shadows would be hitting. Around the toadstools, you want to make sure you get the edge and underneath also, because there would be a little bit of light hitting underneath. So you want to make sure you capture that highlight under there. And for our little hedgie, we're not going to have as much highlights. I did come back in with a gel pen, black gel pen, and do their eyes to give it a little bit more life. And their little noses, and I popped in a little bit of a highlight on them with my white gel pen, and we're going to add a little bit to the hedgie just where the light would be hitting, and our toadstools in the darkest areas, because they're going to have a little bit of cast light. Now I'm going to finish these off by adding a little bit of Stardust stickles on the inside of each toadstool, the little dots, because I wanted to give them a little bit of a shine when you look at the card. All right, so if you made it this far, again, this is a collab. I have Lou's video for what she did with these same products listed below in the description. Plus, Craftstash was nice enough to give us a coupon code for 15% off of all the textured products from March 2nd to March 8th using the code COLLAB15, COLLAB 15. The link to the Craftstash is listed below. I have the code listed below and the dates. So make sure you check out Lou's video. There's a look at the card. Here's a look at the 2 other cards that I made first using these same products. And that is it for me. There's a look at all the cards, and I will see you guys in the next video. Make sure you check out Lou's video. And I am going to show you the cards close up. If you like this video, make sure you check out Lou's video also. See you in the next video. Bye guys, love you.